In anime, tragedy is not just, oh no, something bad happened. Ha, no. That would be too normal. Anime tragedy is when the story looks at a character and says, what if we remove their family, their safety, their childhood, their peace, their future, and just for flavor, their ability to sleep normally ever again? But these characters still keep moving. Their sadness is not just a quick flashback with rain on a window and one bad day. Oh hell no, it builds, layer by layer, loss by loss, until the character is not just carrying trauma, they are basically wearing it. But today, we are not talking about the king of all trauma. No. Branded for death, shaped by childhood abuse, exploitation, and warfare so catastrophic, it basically defined what anime tragedy could look like. That was yesterday, or like 30 years ago. However, new anime brought new characters and new trauma to process. So let's compare them because we all wouldn't like their stories if we didn't have at least a little sadistic streak. Starting with Demon Slayer, Tanjiro Kamado is probably the easiest one to understand emotionally, which does not mean easy to survive. Tanjiro goes on a quest to restore the humanity of his sister Nezuko after his family is killed, and she is transformed into a demon by Muzan Kabutsuji, with Tanjiro left as the sole human survivor of the Kamado family. But let's be honest, name at least one anime main character who still has parents. That's like a basic skill here, but still, it is already enough pain for a lifetime. But what makes Tanjiro different is how he reacts. He does not become cruel, he does not become empty. This boy somehow becomes even more determined to protect people. And that is beautiful, but also deeply painful, because the slaughter of his family instills in him immense guilt and trauma, a feeling that he failed to protect them, which causes an ongoing need to save others. He carries pain like a personal responsibility, even when it was never his fault to carry, and Tanjiro had already lost someone before the demon attack. His father suffered from a debilitating unnamed illness, a man who once had enough strength to kill a bear with his axe. So Tanjiro had already lost his father, already learned responsibility, already became the person his family depended on before Muzan took everything else. A young boy that kind, carrying that much loss, that is not just sad, that is emotional destruction with polite manners. But we just started. Next up with Jujutsu Kaisen, Yuji Itadori's tragedy is especially disturbing because it is not just bad luck. It is design. His life was orchestrated by Kenjaku from the very beginning. He took over Kaori Itadori's body to give birth to Yuji and shape him into the perfect vessel for Sukuna. So even though it looked like Yuji ate Sukuna's finger by choice, it was always part of a plan, not destiny, instead, evil scheduling. The grandfather who raised him gives him his moral compass before dying, and Yuji becomes painfully selfless. He carries humor and a smile on the outside, but underneath is profound guilt, especially in his battles with Mahito and Sukuna. So even when Yuji grows stronger, the story does not reward him, it makes him even lonelier. The series keeps stripping people from him. Friends, mentors, allies, every battle has a cost paid in people. Yuji was built to absorb loss, and the story never stops giving him more to absorb. In the spin-off sequel, Modulo Yuji tragedy becomes far darker. 68 years later, Yuji is revealed to have stopped aging completely due to Kenjaku's genetic engineering and the consumption of his death painting brothers. While everyone around him grows old and dies, Yuji remains trapped in his physical prime for centuries. The cruelest part is how this destroys his grandfather's final wish: die surrounded by people. That goal shaped Yuji's entire life, but immortality makes it impossible. Instead of dying beside loved ones, he is forced to outlive them all, watching friends and allies disappear one by one until he is left completely alone. This emotional toll transforms him. After losing Megumi and witnessing decades of grief, Yuji isolates himself from humanity. The cheerful, empathetic boy from the original series becomes distant, exhausted, and emotionally numb. Society no longer sees him as human either, only as a living weapon and humanity's final trump card. The most tragic twist comes in the final chapter. Yuji willingly plans to become a cursed object after death, sealing his soul into a weapon for future sorcerers. His destiny mirrors Sukuna's. But while Sukuna chose destruction, Yuji accepts eternal damnation purely to protect humanity. While Yuji's got taken away everything valuable to him over time, Gabimaru's was emptied out before ever getting the chance to be human. In Hell's Paradise, Gabimaru's parents were killed by the village chief for trying to escape the ninja village. He witnessed their brutal deaths as an infant and was then raised by that same chief to become a cold, ruthless, emotionless assassin, earning the nickname Gabimaru the Hollow. That name is not just cool anime branding, it is tragic. Hollow means something was supposed to be there and people carved it out. Somehow he gained a wife, Yui. She's the one that cracks that hollowness open. For her, Gabamaru wants to leave his life as an assassin behind, but when he tries to leave, his village betrays him, and he is sentenced to execution because the one genuinely human thing he wants is treated as treason. His love for Yui becomes a weakness in the eyes of the people who turned him into a weapon. Like, excuse me, you made him hollow, and now you are mad that someone gave him feelings? Gabamaru's tragedy is that warmth itself becomes dangerous for him. The love that saves him also gets him condemned, and yet he keeps fighting for Yui. That is what makes him heartbreaking. His most tender feeling exists inside a world that punishes tenderness. Let's continue with another character who had absolutely nothing from the start. Denji from Chainsaw Man. At only 16 years old, Denji already had to sell several organs on the black market. Stuck in a verbal contract with an unforgiving Yakuza, killing devils to pay back the massive debt left by his dead father, Denji's tragedy hits hard because it is so painfully basic. No grand destiny, no noble prophecy, just debt, hunger, poverty, and one demon dog. This boy dreams of having jam on bread, not a castle, not world domination, jam, on, bread, and yeah, a girlfriend. But the world still says no. The Yakuza betray him and leave him for dead. Pochita merges with him and gives him a second life as Chainsaw Man, but this power does not fix him. Denji still hides a traumatic secret behind an imaginary door. When Aki and Power died, everything Makima gave to him was taken away once more. He finally kills her, who he thought to love, and erases her from existence. Yeah, he ate her literally. Safe and free again, but left alone. It means almost nothing. All the time he has been used and misused as a weapon, while being told it is an opportunity or love. He wants the bare minimum, and even that keeps getting taken away. Even until the end of the manga, he remains unfree. At least he got to have jam on toast. But our way through anime trauma shows us various faces and stories. The next one on our list had all Denji dreamed of, but was still tortured by fate. Subaru Natsuki from ReZero. Most isekai protagonists get a cheat ability that makes the new world easier. Subaru? Nah, he gets returned by death. It sounds useful until you think about it for more than 1 second. That Hikikomori boy suddenly finds himself transported to another world on his way home from a convenience store. In this fantasy world, he keeps encountering catastrophes that kill him. Each time he revives at an earlier point and tries to change things. But his mind does not reset. He remembers every painful death, every mistake, every horrible ending, and he cannot tell anyone about this ability. When he tries to reveal it, the witch's taboo stops him or harms others. This leaves him trapped, alone with the knowledge, every cruel memory, and feeling the pain of every single death before. That is not a power. That is a horror subscription. And Subaru isn't the muscle man main protagonist from a shonen manga. Nah, before being transported, he was a socially withdrawn shut-in who had checked out of school and spent his days gaming in isolation. The fantasy world did not break a perfectly stable hero, it broke someone who was already struggling to exist. Every reset reminds him that he is powerless, insufficient, and completely alone with knowledge no one else can share. Subaru's tragedy is not just dying. It is remembering every cruel death and still having to keep moving. All he has is time, but the last character on my list does not. David Martinez from Cyberpunk, Edgerunners. This anime is basically a countdown from the very first scene, and the tragedy is watching him run toward the ending with everything he has. David is a straight-A genius student who does not fit in with his upper-class classmates. He and his mother get caught in a drive-by shooting, and because they cannot afford better care, she does not survive. Just like that, no mother, no money, no future inside the corporate system. Out of grief, he installs a military-grade Sandevistan implant and steps into the Edgerunner life. His reliance on cybernetic augmentations grows, so does his psychological instability. Cyberpsychosis for David is not just about technology, it becomes a symbol of his fragmented identity and unresolved inner conflict. He fights for his girlfriend Lucy, and he fights to become something. But in the final confrontation, his foe Atom Smasher mocks him. You think you're special because you're scrappy? Don't make me laugh. Well, that is not just villainous insult. That is Night City itself speaking. It does not just kill its heroes. It makes sure they know it was always going to end this way. This list could be so much longer, but who do you think is the most tragic anime main character of all time?